Unitarian Universalist Westside Congregation in Rio Rancho. We are glad that you are joining us for our online service today. I am Kathy Wright, Service Associate for today. Our speaker is the Reverend Nancy Hitt, our consulting minister. Our program today is titled COVID Calls the Question. It is founded on UU Principles 4 and 6, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, and the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. It is also based on Source 2, Words and Deeds of Prophetic Women and Men, which challenge us to confront powers and structures of evil with justice, compassion, and the transforming power of love. We hope you find these evident in thought-provoking new ways during our program today. Our thanks to Carol Eaglehart, who is the person videotaping our service for today. If you have never visited Westside before, we welcome you. We are glad you have found us online. We hope that when we are able to return to on-site services and activities, you will join us. If you have questions about who we are or what a UU is, please email Reverend Nancy at ministeruuwc@gmail.com. Thank you. Here are the announcements for today. If you are interested in joining an online class to discuss the book, The Unitarian Way by Philip Hewitt, please contact either David Kuhn or Reverend Nancy to let them know of your interest. Dates and time for the class will be determined based on your needs. The class will be led by David, using the format of reading a short section and then discussing it together. Class will be scheduled for an hour. If you haven't been able to participate in an adult RE class before, this could be your golden opportunity to do so online. Rio, the dog, continues to need your recycled newspapers. Please leave them in the bin outside the social hall door. Rio and her owner thank you sincerely for all of your contributions. They make both of their lives much easier. Next Sunday, August 2nd, we will gratefully receive your donations of food for Storehouse West. Last month, we contributed 190 pounds of food, along with a lot of reusable plastic grocery bags. This is fantastic. We'd like to meet or surpass our own record this month too. The social hall will be staffed from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. on Sunday so that you can drop off canned or dry goods and your reusable plastic grocery bags. If you have plastic newspaper bags, they are delighted to receive these also. They are the perfect size for personal hygiene products. Thank you. It is time now to light our chalice. If you have a personal chalice or candle at home with you, draw it closer now. I invite you to light it as you join in the words on your screen with me. Our chalice flame leaps into being. Where there was nothing, now there is fire to light our way. Encouraged by its light and warmth, may we be moved to reach out, to commit, to engage with the meaningful issues of life. Shalom and amen. Please join me now in affirming our aspirations as they appear before you. Life is a gift. We gather in community to celebrate the glories and the mysteries of this great gift. In the light of truth and in the warmth of love, we gather to seek, to sustain, and to share. Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest for truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve others in community, to the end that all souls grow into harmony with creation. Thus do we covenant with one another. Shalom. Now Reverend Nancy will lead us in a moment for centering.
I invite you now to sit back and relax wherever you are. Uncross your ankles, your knees, your wrists. Gently close your eyes if you are comfortable doing so. Focus your attention on your breathing. Breathing fully and deeply, in and out. Let your mind go blank. Feeling the gentle swell and release of your chest as you breathe. Sit with the rhythm of your breath and feel the peace in your spirit. Slowly begin to refocus your mind on your breathing. Again, deeply and fully, in and out, bringing the peace from within you up to your conscious awareness. And then, wrapped in your own inner peace, open your eyes and return your awareness to the here and now. Shalom. It is time to share our joys and concerns together now. If you have a candle to light at home, draw it closer to you so you can light it as we light our last white candle together. Today, we hold Bram in our hearts as she prepares for a surgical procedure this week. We hope that her results are excellent and that her pain is eliminated as a result. We continue to hold Jimmy in concern as he works to unravel the mysteries of his health and respond to them. We hope for good balance and great medical care for him. For Melinda, we hold a little concern and a little joy as she invites us to look at the political climate of our upcoming election. We hope that everyone is able to communicate effectively and that all of our citizens are able to make the absolute best and right decisions. With Greg, we hold concern for those folks who are struggling with diminished freedoms as a result of the pandemic protocols. We hope for peace of mind for them despite these particular stresses. For Liz Anderson, Laurel's daughter, we hold both joy and concern. Both of her cats, you will be pleased to know, have been cleared to fly after some heavy drama this past week with one of them. Liz and cats will be relocating from Chicago to California on Tuesday. Your thoughts and prayers for safe travel are appreciated. I also share with you the joyous for her, a little bit sad for us news that Ruth Ann Ball is moving to New York to her meditation center for the next year, where she will be living and working with her teacher. We also share joy at the work the Poyanis have undertaken on our behalf. They have been very busy repairing the wood rot that exists in multiple places on the outside of our building. We appreciate their efforts and rejoice in the restored integrity. For all of these things, for the many others we still hold in our hearts and minds, we light this final white candle. For the ongoing protests, demonstrations, and conversations about racial oppression, for the recognition of the need to change old practices, for the lives crippled and cut short by racial violence, we light this red candle. Shalom. And now, Bram Cast-Hecht will share our animal ministry moment with us.
Know that you can handle whatever gets dished out. Sometimes you'll feel lost and overwhelmed. Don't worry, it's all part of your growth experience. There will be many obstacles you can't get around. You just have to go through them. Now this is a dog. He's not a big dog. But he says, "Excuse me, this burger is rubber, not meat. If I were your owner, you'd be out on the street. I'm really truly at a loss that you think that this has special sauce. So take this offending facsimile back, unless you want to see this big dog attack." Now we have the opportunity to share a moment with friends and family. This week, we will get to know Laurel Anderson better.
Today, we focus on Laurel Anderson, a former president of UU Westside. One of her favorite pastimes is photography. I asked her how she got into it.
There was a combination of two things. One was marrying a guy who liked to take pictures, and two was meeting my friend Maria in Ecuador, who was a professional photographer.
Her friend was giving a class, and Laurel decided to take it.
The last class that she gave in the series was one in her darkroom. I love the magic of watching that piece of paper that you put into what looks like water. You know, I mean, it doesn't look, it's chemicals, and all of a sudden this picture starts coming out. You're going, whoa, magic. That was fun.
Laurel used her photography while she was teaching.
As I was teaching, taking pictures of kids, going to my darkroom at night, developing the pictures and then putting them up on the door, and parents would come by and go, "Oh, can I have that one? Can I have that one?" And so that was fun. I liked that feeling. I kept it up off and on, but when I retired, I picked the camera back up again when we came here and had all the wonderful state parks to go to and national parks. And I love digital because you can take pictures to your heart's content. You know, you don't have to worry about, do I have enough film? How much is the film costing? And you can go right home and develop it.
During the pandemic, Laurel has taken up a writing project she's been thinking about for a long time, a book for children.
It's based on some stories that I told my daughter when she was about 7, and she wanted, give me a story before I go to bed.
Her stories are about children who build a clubhouse and have outdoor adventures together.
There are all sorts of stories, and it just, because she kept saying, "Tell me another one, tell me another one." Well, years later, I don't know how it came up, but she said, "Mommy, you should have really written those things down." And I never did. So when we had all this time, she suggested again, "This is your time to write down the stories."
We wish Laurel well in both her writing and her photography.
Today, July 26th, has been designated All or Nothing Day. Actually, nobody knows who started this particular day, but it's been with us for a while. Did you know that there are over 1,500 different kinds of dedicated days? So, doing the math, each calendar day of the year means something special to someone. More often than not, a whole lot of someone's. Today, it's all about all or nothing. Now, one celebrates All or Nothing Day exactly as you might think. It's a day for doing things that you haven't worked up the courage to do before. For some of us, that might be a daredevil act like skydiving or a playful thing like bowling. For others, it might be asking a person out on a date or repairing a friendship or signing up for a class. The thing is, it can be anything that indecision is holding us back from. One group of celebrants likes to ask, if today were the last day of your life, what would you want to make sure you did before it was over that you've never done before? That's one way to figure out how to celebrate. Another is to take a look at your own personal goals and act on at least one of them. Stop worrying and decide it's now or never. All or Nothing Day doesn't just call for rash decisions or daredevil acts. Many people use the day to think through serious issues and make a commitment to a particular course of action. The idea is to suspend indecision and go for the gusto. As the Romans used to say, carpe diem, seize the day. Whatever you decide to do today, do one thing that makes the day yours in a unique way. Go for broke, all or nothing, carpe diem, blessed be. Now Kathy will speak to our gifts of love and commitment.
Our thanks go out to every person who has been able to continue to send in their pledge or other financial gift during the pandemic. Despite not meeting on site, we still need to pay our bills and keep our building in good repair so that it is ready for us to return to when it is safe to do so. Your gifts make that possible. They are an act of hope toward our future together. You may mail your contributions to P.O. Box 15146 in Rio Rancho, or use the PayPal button on our website. Remember to use the memo line on your check to designate your funds if they are for something specific. Again, thank you for keeping Westside alive and well. Now, Reverend Nancy will share a reading from Ralph Waldo Emerson with us.
This is titled, A Person Will Worship Something. A person will worship something. Have no doubt about that. We may think our tribute is paid in secret in the dark recesses of our hearts, but it will out. That which dominates our imaginations and our thoughts will determine our lives, our character. Therefore, it behooves us to be careful what we worship, for what we are worshiping, we are becoming. Amen to that. Over 100 years ago, Emerson wrote these words: "That which dominates our imaginations and our thoughts will determine our lives and character." Considering our current realities with the COVID-19 virus, that's kind of a scary thought. Even those of us who are not infected by the virus are finding that it dominates a lot of our thinking, how we live our lives, and even stresses our character in new ways. Anytime you turn on the news or try to catch up on current events online, there it is. It's all about the virus, how it's spreading, how people are responding to it, which events are canceled or businesses are open, or who's seeking political gain or clout, either because of or in spite of it. It does pretty much dominate the public imagination, and therefore ours too, even when we're determined to avoid it. I can't think of anything that isn't affected in some way by the pandemic. Many things are hugely affected, others just a little. We could probably take the rest of the day to list out the things that have changed because of the virus. But you know what? I don't want to do that. I know that adjusting to the new normal has been a challenge for all of us. Nobody likes wearing a mask. Most of us would prefer to be able to leave our homes freely. We like to socialize without worrying about deadly contagion. Those are all practical realities that we all gripe and moan about. And we all cope with them with greater grace some days than others, but we cope. So instead of focusing on those things, I'd like to point out the rather obvious. COVID-19 has called the question, the big question. Actually, it's called a lot of big questions. Now, do you know what calling the question officially means? Most of us hear the phrase and understand that it brings discussion to a halt and forces a vote on whatever issue is under discussion. However, that's not really true except in the street smarts version when we're using the phrase in casual conversation. Because officially, it's part of Robert's Rules of Order for official meetings. It doesn't actually apply at all to casual conversation. Here's how it works. First, a member of the meeting must have the floor in order to make this motion. You have to raise your hand and wait until the chairperson gives you the nod. They have to recognize you before you speak. You can't just shout out, "I call the question." When you make this motion, you are only suggesting that you would like to stop the discussion and vote. It is an expression of your wish, not a hammer to bludgeon your colleagues with. And this motion requires a second. There have to be at least 2 people in the room who want to cut off the debate before it can actually be considered. The motion itself, to call the question, cannot be discussed or debated. As soon as the chairperson hears a second, she must immediately take the vote. And it takes 2/3 of the voting members in favor to cut off the debate. Therefore, the chair should take the vote by a show of hands or other easily countable method, not by voice. And if indeed 2/3 of the group wants to stop discussion and vote, then the chair immediately takes the vote on the pending motion, the motion that the group is considering at that point in time. No further discussion is allowed. Now, I find it very intriguing that no one can call the question on their own. It requires a second, and it takes 2/3 of those assembled to stop the ongoing debate or discussion and move directly to a vote on the original issue. Plus, the chairperson has a whole lot of power in that if they don't give the caller the nod of recognition, that person can't speak. Whoever Robert was had some interesting ideas about balancing power, which makes a lot of sense, because when I thought about that, I went and looked him up. And I discovered that he was an American soldier who wrote and published his Rules of Order for Parliamentary Procedure in 1876. He eventually became a brigadier general in the US Army. The Army recognizes the need to stop talking and act at times, all in an orderly fashion, of course. So, to loop back to the virus, it only knows the street version of calling the question. The virus doesn't follow protocol or wait for recognition or votes. It's as if the virus is running around in and out of our lives and continually saying, "I call the question," before we even know we're in a conversation. Because so much has had to change to keep people safe, we're all questioning a lot of things we formerly took for granted. And while it's burdensome at times, it's also good for us. It's good for us to remember that what we do, even in small ways, affects other people. It's good for us to remember that we are affected by what other people do. We are not as independent as we might have liked to think. It's good for us to recognize the disparity in healthcare that the virus exposes. It's good for us to see the realities of racial oppression in ways that we can't avoid. It's good for us to need to rework our cultural institutions and our politics and economics and pretty much everything about our lives so that we can do it better, so we can be intentional about getting it right this time. I think the virus is calling the question about a very basic issue that is connected to pretty much everything else in the midst of an extremely long discussion. The question that the virus calls us all to account for is, what does it mean to be human? The practical details of living in a pandemic call us to account for our relationships and behavior toward one another. Will we wear a mask or not? What does it mean if I do, or if I don't? What does it mean to me if you don't wear one? Will I follow the arrows on the supermarket floor and only go one way up or down the aisles? Or will I decide my convenience is more important than anyone's health, or that no one has a right to make me shop in a certain way? It sounds trivial, but it's not, because scientific research says that most droplet infection in grocery stores happens when people pass each other while going in opposite directions. Maximum safety happens when people wear masks, stay 6 feet apart, and walk one way in the aisles. Seriously, what's a decent human being to do? Well, if you're you try to make these new decisions based on 7 principles, and you look to 6 sources for examples as to what that could look like. I'd like to invoke all 7 principles, but in the interest of time, let's focus on numbers 4 and 6. We're usually pretty happy with principle number 4, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. We especially like the free part of the search. But COVID is calling the question on that right away, because our search is to be both free and responsible. It's not an either-or proposition. It's a both and. While wearing a mask may feel like our freedom is compromised, as soon as we refuse, we're being irresponsible. We'd be ignoring the impact of not wearing a mask on others, which would surely violate their inherent worth and dignity, since we'd be telling them that you're much less important than I am. Our life matters, theirs not so much. So here we have a very small, simple task that acquires huge importance due to the consequence that it carries. And while we might be tempted to protest the mandate to wear a mask based on our freedom, if we're exercising our responsibility, we're going to be first in line to wear that mask. And that logic applies to absolutely everything. The rule of measure is not just our freedom, it is our freedom and our responsibility. Both have to be served, or neither can be argued. Let's move on to principle number 6, the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. This is where the question of what it means to be human really comes into focus. The pre-existing inequities, prejudices, elitism, and oppression that are built into our healthcare systems, our educational systems, our banking systems, our policing systems, all of these and more absolutely prohibit a world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. The pandemic has exposed the failure of those institutions as the fabric of society is ripped open for all to see. When the Navajo Nation is overwhelmed by the virus and its people can't wash their hands frequently because they have no running water and they don't have adequate health care, and the federal government says literally, "Gee, that's too bad." The virus has exposed us to a truth that calls for a response. "Gee, that's too bad" does not bring peace or liberty or justice. That's a farce that brings conflict, pain, and suffering. Being human means paying attention and responding to genuine need, not offering faux sympathy. The virus keeps drawing our attention to flaws in our social structure. We can either decide to accept the flaws, or we can work to change the social structure. This may be why so many of us are so exhausted. We thought we had it all figured out. We knew right from wrong, and we tried hard to make our votes and our dollars count by using them the right way. We treasured our freedoms and our independence. And then the virus changed everything. Nothing means what we thought it did. And it isn't just that it doesn't mean what it used to. We're figuring out that a lot of what we thought things used to mean wasn't even accurate. We have no idea what they really meant for anyone but us. And thanks to the virus again, we now know that the questions are bigger than just us. We are connected in ways we never paid attention to before. So what do we do now? Now that we've heard the question, how do we respond? The virus is like a catalyst. It exposes things, it starts things, it speeds them up. But it doesn't actually resolve them. Only we can decide how to do that. What does it mean to be human? And by that, I mean our best, most creative and life-supporting kind of human. What it looks like to be a really good human being has a lot of nuance and application it never had before. A lot of creative and unique living that ultimately means a revolution in our social structure. This is a wildly exciting and therefore exhausting time. It's as if every day is all or nothing day. A day to suspend indecision and act because life is in desperate need of bold action. The greatest danger? The greatest danger is not that we'll make a less than perfect decision. The greatest danger is that we will discuss ourselves to death and nothing will change. In fact, if we fail to act boldly, not only will nothing change for the better, things will get even worse. Things that are broken will break down even further, setting a precedent for brokenness as the new normal to a degree that far supersedes our history. There is no neutral gear here. It really is a kind of all or nothing. I don't know how we could do that and still live with ourselves. We can't unless we deny our own awareness and play dead to the challenges of life. And I have to tell you, it kind of scares me when I hear us talk about how much we want to get back to normal. Why are we even considering going backwards? We don't need to return to anything. We actually should have learned by now that a lot of what we thought we couldn't live without, we can. We need to move forward, equipped and empowered with the blunt truths that COVID-19 has thrust in our faces. We need to build a new normal that really works for real people, all of them, not just the rich and powerful. We need to dream and plan and act to build a new social structure that supports everyone, a structure that really does provide peace, liberty, and justice for every person. And it can be done. The proof that the threat of a new social structure is possible is evident in the use of federal force to contain protesters. The city of Portland has really good reason to be filled with unrest and protesting recent events. The citizens are pushing hard for change in entrenched systems. That means creating a new way of being human, a new kind of social institution instead of going back to before. And that life-giving creativity is dangerous if your power depends on the former law and order. And so we have unsolicited, preemptive use of force to subdue those demanding change. No one ever said carpe diem was safe or easy. But it's happening in unforeseen new ways and in unexpected places. Here are three. In Hawaii, there is a plan. It's called Building Bridges, Not Walking on Backs, a feminist economic recovery plan for COVID-19. It centers on women from the most marginalized groups that have been disproportionately affected by COVID-19. The plan not only proposes measures that will help aid in recovery from the economic fallout of the virus, but also introduces fundamental changes to the way women's work is valued and compensated. The plan calls for a restructuring of Hawaii's economy, moving away from heavy reliance on military, tourism, and luxury development. And I quote here, they want to do this by identifying opportunities for Hawaii to support and benefit from sustainable PPE manufacturing, design, or other opportunities, and ensuring women have access to green jobs in renewable energy, energy efficiency, and environmental management and construction jobs, which at this point are 89.9% male workers. And they want this to happen through stimulus programs that promote gender and racial equity. Strengthening education, childcare, and healthcare programs is also proposed as research shows that this boosts employment, earnings, economic growth, and fosters gender equality. Now there's a whole lot more to this, including a whole lot of opposition to changing what has been considered normal. But this is an amazing start. And in Asheville, North Carolina, the Asheville City Council voted last week to provide reparations by investing in marginalized Black communities. The city plans to prioritize efforts such as increasing minority homeownership and access to other affordable housing, increasing minority business ownership and career opportunities, closing the gap in healthcare, education, employment, and pay, and changing the criminal justice system so that it is equitable. City leaders said they would like to create paths to generational wealth for Black people. And Rhode Island may be our very smallest state, but it's doing some very big things. Last week, Providence officials pledged some form of reparations for Black people Indigenous people, and people of color. Mayor Elorza, Councilwoman Nerva LaFortune, and community leaders created an executive order promising truth, reconciliation, and municipal reparations. The order requires Providence to seek the truth about the city and state's role in slavery, promote community discussions around racial injustice, and determine what policies and programs would reverse the harms of slavery and genocide. The mayor said officials have not determined what kind of reparations the city will provide, but he's open to ideas. He said that Providence can't bear the entire burden of paying reparations to its Black residents. He called for all levels of government to join their effort. Now, I realize that none of this is perfect. Neither Hawaii, nor Asheville, nor Providence will become perfect models of community in keeping with even UU principles number 4 and 6. But I don't think that any of this would have happened if it were not for the pandemic challenging us to figure out how to be human in new ways. Sometimes we can't envision how to do things differently until we have to. Living in a pandemic has shown us we have to. At least we have to if we want to live. Today is All or Nothing Day. I hope that we can grab hold of new ways to be human with all of our heart, mind, strength, and spirit. And if you need a little help to launch yourself into it, try drinking lemonade or eating warheads or sour gummy bears. Why, you ask? Because science says that if we eat or drink, if we taste something really sour when trying to decide whether or not to seize the day, we're more likely to give it our all, just because of that sour taste. I can't explain it, and neither can they, but statistically, that's a fact. So maybe grab a lemon and go for the gusto, and hopefully we will never be the same again. Shalom. I invite you now to seize the moment and offer up your feedback about this or any other service that you've participated in recently. Since we are no longer face-to-face, I really value your comments. They are helpful in planning for the future. And for them, I thank you. It is time now for us to extinguish our chalice. I invite you to draw yours closer to you if you have a personal one at home, and join me in the words as they appear on your screen. Though extinguished from our sight, our chalice flame still glows warmly within our hearts. May we go for the gusto in life, taking every chance to extend our principles into the world through enthusiastic practice. Shalom and amen. May you know the joy of engaging fully in life as it presents itself to you. May you overcome obstacles, reroute through detours, and celebrate meaning and purpose with great joy. Go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere you go, whoever you are with, and however you have need. Shalom and amen.